When people think about Viking construction, they tend to focus on ships, weapons, or towering halls built for chieftains and kings. Floors are almost never part of the discussion. They're assumed to be crude, temporary, or simply dirt-packed beneath more impressive structures. That assumption is wrong, and honestly, it hides one of the most practical building traditions in early medieval Europe. Viking floors were not an afterthought. They were engineered responses to cold, moisture, limited materials, and long-term occupation in hostile environments. For modern builders, the lesson is straightforward. Durability does not require uniform materials. It requires understanding how different materials behave together under stress, moisture, and temperature change. One of the most overlooked features of Viking floor construction is drainage. Moisture management mattered because rot meant collapse, and collapse meant exposure to lethal weather. In regions with heavy rainfall or snowmelt, builders layered coarse gravel beneath packed earth. This allowed water to move away from the living surface instead of pooling beneath it. In some longhouses, shallow channels were cut along the interior edges of the floor to guide water toward exits or absorption zones. These were not decorative features, they were maintenance solutions learned through failure. Floors that stayed wet failed quickly. Floors that drained lasted decades. This principle appears again and again in Norse settlements across the North Atlantic, including Greenland, where timber scarcity forced builders to rely even more heavily on earth and stone. The Vikings did not fight moisture with impermeable barriers, they redirected it. Where timber was abundant, raised wooden floors were sometimes used but never laid directly on damp ground. Instead, planks rested on stone sleepers or short posts. This created airflow beneath the floor, slowing rot and mold growth. The space was small, but it mattered. The wood itself was rarely planed smooth. Rough surfaces increased friction, reduced slipping during icy conditions, and wore more evenly. Gaps between planks allowed fine debris and moisture to pass through rather than accumulate. Cleaning involved periodic sweeping and seasonal replacement of damaged boards. Modern construction often seals floors tightly and then struggles with trapped moisture. Viking builders accepted airflow and movement as necessary parts of a healthy structure. The Viking hearth was usually central, and the floor around it was treated differently. Stone or compacted ash-rich soil absorbed heat during use and released it slowly after the fire died down. This stabilized indoor temperatures overnight. Heat rises, but warm floors change how heat behaves in a space. By designing floors to store thermal energy, Viking builders improved comfort without increasing fuel use. Modern radiant floor systems follow the same logic with different materials. The Viking version required no pipes, no concrete, and no external energy source beyond the fire that was already necessary for survival. Viking floors were not designed to be forgotten. They were designed to be worked on. Seasonal maintenance was part of household labor, especially before winter. Surfaces were repaired, repacked, or re-ashed as needed. This expectation allowed builders to prioritize performance over permanence. Instead of overbuilding to avoid future work, they created systems that could be renewed with local materials. That mindset reduced catastrophic failure and extended the usable life of the structure. For modern builders and survival-minded planners, this is a critical lesson. Systems that assume maintenance are often more resilient than systems that pretend it will never be required. Contrary to popular belief, Viking homes were not universally filthy. Floors played a role in sanitation. Ash layers reduced odors and bacterial growth. Drainage prevented stagnant moisture. Regular resurfacing removed waste buildup. In some regions, animal stalls were integrated into longhouses, separated by slight elevation changes or material transitions in the floor. The floor was part of a broader environmental management strategy, not a neutral surface. Modern construction often treats floors as passive layers beneath finishes. Viking builders understood them as active systems. This does not mean modern builders should replicate Viking floors wholesale. It means the logic behind them deserves attention. Use materials that work with local climate, accept movement and moisture as realities rather than defects, designed for repair, not just installation. Viking floor designs remind us that survival is rarely about singular innovations. It is about layered decisions, tested over generations, refined through failure, and grounded in environment rather than theory. Floors supported daily life quietly and effectively, and because of that, they were rarely celebrated. Understanding these overlooked systems changes how we interpret the Viking world. It shifts the focus from conquest to continuity, from spectacle to survival, and it offers practical insights for anyone building with an eye toward durability rather than convenience. If you value this kind of careful, grounded historical analysis, consider subscribing to History Vault. Share this video with others who appreciate history that explains how people lived, not just how they fought. These details matter because they are where history becomes useful rather than ornamental.